Action Research Multimedia presentation by Jordan Katz, 8Y43D13. We will begin with my problem statement and the core values of which my research question emanated from. So my core values include responsibility, inclusivity, and student learning. Responsibility, as it is my job as an educator to manage the classroom both effectively and efficiently in order to ensure safe and effective learning for all. Inclusivity is one of my core values as an educator, and I believe that inclusivity is the building block to student learning. A student will not learn if they do not feel included and welcomed in the classroom. It is essential to create an inclusive environment for all of my students. Students will have a positive attitude towards learning if they believe that they matter and are welcome. Student learning is my last core value as a teacher. I value the learning of each of my students. Learning time is lost when behavior has to be addressed on a consistent basis. I want all students to succeed, and I will make it part of my professional development to constantly learn and add more strategies to my classroom management. This will help foster a positive and inclusive environment in which all students are pushed academically but are able to succeed. So, my area of interest for my research study is classroom management. My interest in this topic emanated from my second placement. During this placement, my associate teacher strongly suggested to me that I sit in on the science teacher's lesson while he taught our class. My associate teacher told me that I have to see what goes on there. Intrigued, I sat in on the class. The science teacher had his lesson well planned. However, there was absolutely no classroom management. In one corner of the classroom, students were making paper airplanes. In another, students were crawling on the floor, pretending to be snakes. In the other two corners, students were either talking or fighting. It was complete chaos. I am very happy that I had the opportunity to witness this, as it put classroom management into perspective for me. I realized that you could be the smartest teacher on the subject, like this science teacher was, and have your lesson well planned, but if you do not have any classroom management, the students are not going to learn anything. In other words, if you do not have any classroom management, it does not matter how knowledgeable you are on the subject you are teaching. As a result, my research question is how can I use a variety of classroom management strategies to promote academic achievement in my classroom, in my elementary classroom? It is very important to me to know the most effective classroom management strategies, as I have personally witnessed that poor classroom management equals no learning, regardless of how knowledgeable you are on the subject. I want to find and obtain a repertoire of these strategies in order to promote student learning and create a more inclusive and responsible environment. So some definitions and terms that I will be discussing as part of my research study are cozy space, which is a safe place for students, especially those having issues, to relax and regroup themselves. The students are able to join the class whenever they are ready. Another strategy is the box of praise, a strategy in which students praise other students. Students write notes of praise about any of their peers and place it in the box of praise. The teacher reads aloud the notes that the students have written about any peers of their choice and placed in their box of praise. So my first literature summary comes from "My lesson plan was perfect until I tried to teach care ethics into practice in classroom management." So the authors Rabin and Smith created their own classroom management strategy in which they designed procedures which sought to create a caring environment within the classroom. Rabin and Smith decided against preset rules within the classroom, but rather they co-created norms with the students. Apprehending the other's reality, feeling what he feels as nearly as impossible, is the essential part of caring from the view of the one caring. For if I take on the other's reality as a possibility and begin to feel its reality, I feel also that I must act accordingly. That comes from Rabin and Smith. Having students believe and know that you care for them and that they are cared for will help promote academic achievement and mitigate classroom misbehaviors. Raven and Smith discussed the importance of rewarding and praising students as opposed to punishing. They tested out a strategy called Box of Praise. The Box of Praise required students to praise selected classmates. The teacher reads aloud the notes that the students have written about any periods of their choice and placed in their box of praise. Raven and Smith further discussed the strategy called our cozy space. Our cozy space is a place for students, especially those having issues, a safe place to relax and regroup themselves. The students are able to rejoin the class whenever they are ready. The best part about this strategy is that you don't send a message of rejection. If students are having a tough time, you don't need to center them out or send them out of class to regroup themselves, but rather they can go to the back of the classroom on their own accord. Both of these strategies, Box of Praise and our cozy space, are excellent strategies that I would like to test out in my classroom. In order to see the true effect that they have on my classroom management and the academic achievement in my elementary classroom. In this slide, I included improvements made for my feedback on this assignment by linking my research question and strategy explicitly and repeatedly. The next literature summary is Classroom Management Affects Literacy Development of Students with Emotional and Behavioral Disorders. The authors Garwood and Fegans conducted a study which found that there is a direct relationship between academic achievement and strong classroom management for students exhibiting emotional and behavioral disorders. Garwood and Fegans argue that this is due to learning time being lost as more time is devoted to punitive and reactive practices. In other words, if a teacher has to pause a lesson in order to deal with behavioral problems, learning time is lost. As a result, less material is learned and academic achievement suffers. Therefore, teachers, like myself, need to search and obtain a repertoire of classroom management strategies in order to waste less learning time, which would further academic achievement. The authors discuss a study in which clearly stating expectations and posting rules were positively related to students' on-task behavior, although results were differentiated by student gender. High-quality classroom management, which includes a focus on both behavioral control and teachers' warmth and care for the students, has been identified as a necessary component for effective elementary reading instruction. Garwood and Fegans also suggest that strong classroom management in a student's first 4 years in school is crucial to their literacy achievement. In other words, if there is poor classroom management for those first 4 years, literacy achievement will suffer. It is crucial for teachers of early year children to clearly state their expectations and have strong classroom management in order to promote literacy achievement. Again, for this slide, I included improvements made for my feedback on this assignment by linking my research question and strategy explicitly and repeatedly. So, my third and final literature summary is The Secret of Classroom Management. The authors Backus and Ellis discuss the importance of rapport for classroom management. Teachers must develop a strong rapport with students in order to create an inclusive learning environment which would enhance student learning. Backus and Ellis further discuss the significance of the teacher-student relationship and suggest that teachers greet students in the hallways. Teachers should show enthusiasm and smile, and most importantly, teachers should model appropriate behaviors such as patience, humor, courtesy, and manners. I truly believe that rapport is the most important part of classroom management. If a teacher has a strong rapport with students, the students will not want to displease the teacher, but rather will look for ways to please the teacher. In doing so, students will be less likely to be off task, which would result in more learning time and higher academic achievement. Backus and Ellis further emphasize the importance of communicated expectations. Students must know what is expected of them in terms of behavior from day one. By communicating and setting the expectation from day one, students are set to succeed. This will result in patterned positive behavior. Lastly, Backus and Ellis argued that well-planned, meaningful lessons are necessities for classroom management. Expectations and meaningful lessons in combination with strong student rapport will have students highly engaged, on task, and respectful to their teacher, which will result in a strong classroom management and high academic achievement. Again, I included improvements made from my feedback on this assignment by directly linking my research question and strategy explicitly and repeatedly. So next, we will be moving on to my research plan and data sources. My first data source is anecdotal records. I chose anecdotal records as they capture natural behavior and are relatively unobtrusive and reliable for low inference observations. I am hoping to learn from the anecdotal records as to which students are not responding to the classroom management strategy, why not, and how often. The one negative factor about anecdotal records are that they are subject to bias as they are not very objective. My next data source are samples of student work, which will work to capture the quality of student work and show how engaged and focused students were through their work. Through the collection of samples of student work, I am hoping to learn how each classroom management strategy affects the quality of student work. However, the downside of this data is that it does not take into account other factors that might result in the quality of student work. My last source of data is to ensure objectivity and reliability in my research study. Since the anecdotal records capture raw student behavior but are exposed to bias as they are subjective, we need to have an objective data source. This is why my last source of data is video recording. Video recordings are able to capture student behavior from an objective view and are reliable. Through video recordings, I am hoping to learn from an objective point of view, not solely the teacher's view, myself, as to the strengths and weaknesses of each classroom management strategy and why they were or were not effective. The only downside to this data source is that it can be time consuming to go through and analyze the video recordings. I used various types of data including anecdotal records, samples of student work, and video recordings to ensure triangulation. I plan to ensure validity and reliability of my data collection by using various sources of data collection to document the strengths of various classroom management strategies that create more learning time and improve academic achievement in my elementary classroom. I plan on using student samples of works and anecdotal records in order to see how the classroom management strategy correlates to the quality of student work. I will also use video recordings in order to triangulate the data and get an objective view as to the effectiveness of the classroom management strategy. Validity and reliability are extremely significant to research study. Both of these aspects must be thorough in order to ensure accuracy. In order to obtain accuracy, one has to look at the same data from various different perspectives. As a result, I plan on getting many different perspectives and interpretations of my data that I collect. I am doing this by collecting data from a subjective view and an objective view in order to reduce bias while maintaining high accuracy. I will also have other colleagues examine the student work without looking at the names of the students, in order to reduce bias and increase the reliability and accuracy of the data. Lastly, I will have other colleagues sit in on my class and take anecdotal records in order to get more perspective and increase reliability. By following this plan, my research will be valid and extremely reliable. So, my participants and settings. Anecdotal records will include, the participants are the students, it will be collected by the teacher, myself, and colleagues, and it will be conducted in the classroom. The samples of student work, the participants are the students again. They're collected by a teacher, colleagues, principal, and they're in the classroom after school. The video recordings are the students are the participants, collected by a teacher, colleagues, principal, as we want to keep it objective and have many different perspectives and views, and will be in the classroom. It is very important to get different perspectives when analyzing data and conducting data. That is why I will have as many different perspectives as I can when I conduct my research. Next, we will move on to my data collection procedures for my research plan. My anecdotal records will be collected daily from September to April. Whenever possible, I will have colleagues sit in on my class to conduct anecdotal records as well in order to increase reliability and reduce bias. Samples of student work will be conducted weekly, including one literacy sample and one math sample from September to April. Video recordings will be conducted bi-monthly at the beginning of the month and the start of new classroom management strategy, and at the end of the month and the last day of the introduced classroom management strategy. The video recordings will be conducted from September to April and will show the difference from the beginning of the classroom management strategy to the end. For my action research study, I will have to consider many ethical issues in order for it to be a success. Firstly, I will have to ensure confidentiality by providing anonymity to my participants and students. I will give them a pseudonym, or I could even have the students create their own pseudonym. I must allow participants the right to withdraw from the study at any point. I must also obtain informed consent for any form of data collection. When framing an action research project in the classroom, all teachers should ask themselves, am I protecting the anonymity, can't say that word, and confidentiality of my classroom? Do my participants know and understand that they can withdraw from the study at any time? How will the power relations involved affect the study? Is there any form of risk to participants? And I have definitely addressed all of these questions. This action research study will support my knowledge of teaching because you can't teach if you do not have classroom management. It's plain and simple. I have learned through my personal experience that you can be the best teacher and the most knowledgeable on the subject. However, without classroom management, that means absolutely nothing. This research study will provide me with a repertoire of classroom management strategies that will allow me to teach in any classroom regardless of the behaviors, which will result in more learning time for my classroom.